Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial on estimating the population proportion part 3. In this tutorial we're going to be focusing on different levels of confidence and the different confidence intervals that we can calculate. We can change the level of confidence, and the 95% confidence interval is not the only confidence interval that we can calculate. There are actually 3 levels of confidence that we can use in our intervals. There's the 90% confidence interval, there's the 95% confidence interval, and the 99% confidence interval. There's a general formula for all 3 of these confidence intervals, and the formula looks like this. You'll see when you look at it that it is like the formula for the 95% confidence interval, except instead of having 1.96 here, we have the value of a constant which we're calling k. This value of k will change according to the confidence level that you're wanting to find. All 3 formulas are identical except for the value of k. And for the 95% confidence interval, as you probably already know, the value of k is equal to 1.96. So now we're going to look at the 3 different levels of confidence: the 90% confidence interval, the 95% confidence interval, and the 99% confidence interval. Here is our general formula up the top here with our constant k. So for the 90% confidence interval, the value of k is 1.65, so that the formula for the 90% confidence interval is exactly the same as the formula for the 95% confidence interval, except for this value here, which is now 1.65. And for the 99% confidence interval, the value of k is 2.58. So again, the formula for the 99% confidence interval looks exactly the same as the formula for the 95% confidence interval, except that our constant now is 2.58 instead of 1.96. So the only difference between the 3 formulas is the value of k. For the 90% confidence interval, it's 1.65. For the 95% confidence interval, it's 1.96. And for the 99% confidence interval, it's 2.58. Let's look at this example. We're going to calculate and compare the 90%, the 95% and the 99% confidence intervals for the proportion P of primary school children in Australia who regularly use social media. This is based on us selecting a random sample of 200 children, and that we find that the sample proportion P hat is to be equal to 0.7. Now, this is exactly the same example as the one that we did earlier, and we know from the calculation earlier that the 95% confidence interval is from 0.636 to 0.764. Remember, we said this is roughly an interval of about 12%. Now, for the 90% confidence interval, using a k value of 1.65, we find that our confidence interval is 0.647 to 0.753. So we can expect that the population proportion using this confidence interval is from roughly 0.65 or 65% to 0.75 or 75%. This is only a difference of 10% in our interval. However, for the 99% confidence interval, where we use a k value of 2.58, we find that the confidence interval is from 0.616 to 0.784. This is roughly an interval of about 62% to 78%, and this is roughly a 16% difference as compared to a 10% difference up here and a 12% difference for the 95% confidence interval. So now we're going to look at a second example. And in this example, there has been a survey of attitudes to climate change taken, and a total of 537 people from a random sample of 1,000 people have answered no to the question, do you think the government is doing enough to address global warming? We're going to calculate and compare the 90%, 95% and 99% confidence intervals for the proportion of people in Australia who would answer no to this question. So, in this example, the sample proportion is 537 over 1,000 or 0.537. And the 90% confidence interval is calculated using this formula where K is 1.65. When we substitute our value for the sample proportion into this formula and our sample size of 1,000, as well as our K value of 1.65, we calculate our 90% confidence interval to be 0.5110 to 0.5630. This is an interval of approximately 51% to 56%, and that's only a difference of 5% in our interval. So we would predict, using the 90% confidence interval, that the population proportion would be between 51.1% to 56.3%. Now let's do the same thing, but this time using the 95% confidence interval. The same value for p hat, the same sample size, but this time our K value is 1.96. When we calculate our 95% confidence interval, we find that the confidence interval is from 0.5061 to 0.5679. So this is roughly going to be 51% to 57%. This is a 95% confidence interval of 50.61% to 56.79%, and it's roughly going to be 6%. Now let's look at the third confidence interval, the 99% confidence interval, this time using a K value of 2.58. Same value for p hat, same sample size. When we calculate our 99% confidence interval, we find that the confidence interval is from 0.4963 to 0.5777. And this means that our 99% confidence interval is from 49.63% to 57.77%. And so this is an interval of roughly between 50% and 58%, so a difference of 8%. When we compare the three confidence intervals, we find that the 99% confidence interval is roughly about 8% in width. The 95% confidence interval is roughly about 7% in width, and that the 90% confidence interval is roughly about 6% in width. So based on this tutorial, on the examples that we've looked at, I want you to now complete exercise 17D on page 715 of your textbook and look at questions 11 and 12. These two questions are looking at calculating the three different confidence intervals that we've looked at and comparing them. Thanks for listening and have fun doing those exercises.